Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class if you've not been watching my videos. I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. I'm coming! I'm coming! This is the second time I've been late for a live stream today.
Oh dear.
I'd forgotten my sustenance. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'm sorry we're late. Less than 5 minutes ago, both Alex and myself were still on the street.
Yep.
Somewhere
Anyway, I'm going to get used to being, I think.
Yeah. Now, this is the 8 p.m. regular weekly Wednesday Movers Workshop, but today it's a budget special. It's pre-watershed, so Stiggy's on best behaviour.
And water.
And water for now, but at 10 o'clock, it's the first Charlie and Stig show for members only. And there are a few of you who signed up, not very many, so we've decided to make it a private video conference where you can all be in the room and talk to us directly while the numbers are still small. We'll do that. And if you want to join that club, you've got until 10 p.m. tonight. Any new joiners tonight will be able to join tonight's. It's not going to be recorded. It's going to be just a private video conference with the members of the club and myself and Alex. If you are a member, please check your email and check your junk because you'll need it to have the link to get into the call. And if you haven't joined and you'd like to join, the link is in the where's it gone? The link is, I had it ready and it's gone. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll put it in the live chat right now. Okay, so the link to join, if you'd like to join at any point this evening, is in the live chat right now. Okay, now we are going to be discussing some not funny news this evening. People losing jobs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Alex and I are also going to bring our usual brand of gallows humor, where our humor is our coping mechanism for the utter doom and despair that is befalling us before our very eyes. Okay, so don't please ever think that when we're laughing at anyone's misfortune, because we're not. Evening, Alex.
Good evening, Charlie. How are you?
Can you hear me and can you hear Alex? Can we just do a sound check? Because sometimes when we're together, you can't all. Got some. So Ditch Head is saying, "What's up, Stig?"
Hello, Ditch Head.
Craig, Rich. A message to all men: check your junk. No, this is before the watershed. We're behaving this evening. Question. Yeah, on one scale of 1 to 10, how miserable is this live stream going to be? I don't know. This, every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah, I haven't started on the whiskey yet.
Yeah, we'll save the true misery for later.
Yeah. I'm not even allowed to swear. I mean, it can't be that miserable.
Yes. And you bought some very special whiskey. May I show the viewers? Mm-hmm. So you get an idea, because this is how we're spending your money.
Oh, no, but made in the UK. I mean,
Sorry, I've got to tell everyone what it says on your T-shirt. I've just seen the back of your T-shirt. Shut up, liver, you're fine.
There you go. Well, it seems reasonable.
But you won't be later.
Yeah,
I suspect.
It's the water.
Anyway, so thank you very much. This is the some of the swag from the proceeds of the first members club. Anyway, never mind. That's for later. We'll stop plugging that show now. The budget. I've already seen small business owners who crunch their numbers going, right, this is going to cost me more than I can afford.
Yeah.
I'm going to have no choice but to lay
Primarily
some
the
people
minimum
off.
wage or the employers mix?
The combination.
Yeah.
And the minimum wage is actually the bigger hit.
Yeah. I was just discussing it with the Uber guy on the way over here. Fortunately, they're not impacted, although they have been, because they're now regarded as dependents sort of on Uber and yada yada. But that's not something that's going to affect them. But yeah, I mean, the minimum wage is going to make a big difference to a lot of relatively small businesses. And I know she thinks that offsetting that with business rates for food and retail and all that sort of good stuff, reduction and relief. But there are still a lot of companies that employ young people that either don't have a premises, or even if they have a premises, may not qualify for that relief.
Yeah, and actually they're the larger employers as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes down to, if you do the calculation, if you were going to have 6 people to cover for sickness, etc., certain shifts across a week, if you're going to employ a team of 6, and it works best for 6s because of the numbers, if you were a business owner, you would go, do you know what? I think we're going to make sure that no one gets ill this year and that people don't have as many holidays because they won't be able to afford it. So I'll employ 5. And that way I'm going to cover the uplift for these 18 and 20-year-olds, which is the biggest uplift. I'll cover that. And I'll also come out even on my employer's national insurance, and that's sweet. Yeah. But we'll do it with 5 people, not 6.
You see, it's really interesting because I've always said about this particular government, this cabinet, and this is not a Labour or a Tory thing, I'm just talking about the members of this cabinet. None of them have ever themselves had to run a business and balance the books. In other words, they've never had to make sure that there's enough money at the end of the month to meet payroll, right? Which for a lot of these businesses is the single biggest outgoing. And that's the big news from this budget. And this affects everything and everyone, and the housing market, of course, because if unemployment goes up, which it's going to on the back of this, how much we don't know.
No.
It's going to affect people. Now, but before we get into that, because I mentioned it on X that I would talk about the horrific task of having to take people's jobs away when you've got no choice. Before we get to that, the headlines for the housing market from today's budget are: the right to buy discount is going to be reduced to 25%.
Yeah.
Bad news if you were planning to buy your rented social council house, but good news for social housing supply, right? First-time buyers, if you are buying a property for £425,000 and you buy it and you've bought it before the 1st of April next year, your stamp duty bill will be 0. But on the 1st of April next year, the threshold drops to 300,000 and you'll be paying £6,250 of stamp duty if you're buying one at £425,000, because the threshold drops from 425 to 300,000.
So if it works the same way as it did in 21 when they had stamp duty holidays, surely that means that house prices will fall by £6,250.
Pretty much.
Because they went up by pretty much the saving in stamp duty last time.
Yep. So you can expect it to hit house prices. People going, oh, is there going to be a mad rush to buy before then? I think if you're well into the process now, then you might have a chance.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're going to want to do it quickly. So for people, but if you're thinking of buying and haven't started even going out to look yet, the chances are tiny that you'll get a purchase completed by the 1st of April. If you are buying buy to let or a second home where there's already a 5% surcharge automatically. Hang on a second. I've got the page up here actually. So there's an immediate, as of midnight tonight. Now I've spoken to one of the conveyancers. He said that the phones just went nuts immediately after the budget finished. They've just literally, he said it's like a crazy dealing room. They're ordering beer and pizza. They're going to be staying late to try and get today's deals exchanged, because literally at midnight tonight, a lot of those purchases
it waits till tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And what's going to happen then? Loads of people are going to try and renegotiate, understandably. Yeah, understandably. So the moving industry is going to have a shocking few weeks now, as a whole lot of pipeline stuff is going to fall out.
Yeah, it will be a massive disruption. But it's not going to be as bad as we feared it would be with the sort of mad market up to April. If the capital gains tax piece had been more draconian, and landlords were selling at a vast rate, the stamp duty had gone up and first-time buyers were trying to buy, that's not going to happen. But yeah, for people in the middle of a deal right now, or for somebody who wanted to become a landlord or was trying to buy another property, and was planning to do that in the next few months because they've seen that larger properties prices have dropped. So yeah, I'll get in there. Yeah, they're going to be renegotiated.
It's 2% more as of midnight tonight on the purchase price. So for second homes, typically you're going to be talking 450, 500,000 for some of those. You're talking about £8,000 or £9,000 extra as of midnight tonight for the price of your purchase.
Yeah, and you're talking London market when you move out into
yes,
the
of
wild.
course. Yeah, of course. But again, I think the second home market.
Yes, big cities, absolutely.
It's so the problem is, and the stamp duty limit is being reduced to 300,000 for first-time buyers, and the entry level threshold for non-first-time buyers is coming down to 125,000 as of the 1st of April. So first-time buyer stamp duty, second homes and buy-to-let stamp duty has gone up 2% as of midnight tonight. Right to buy has been reduced. Amazingly, they didn't increase capital gains tax for people selling properties.
No, it's remained exactly the same.
Which is a surprise.
Yeah.
And that will... I mean, overall, I see, especially the top half of the market, continuing to slide. It won't slide as steeply now because there won't be an extra rush for the gains.
No, I mean, the things that were going to do it were, if they had a wealth tax, which is, massively skewed towards affecting older people in large houses. If they had a wealth tax, if they hadn't continued the pension triple lock at the higher rate, those sort of things in combination with the capital gains would potentially, of course, a really big bang in the housing market. But they just didn't go ahead with anything that had been talked about. All the rumors in the press about 39% capital gains tax or a 1% wealth tax based on all of these things that have been floated. It was, from that perspective, it was very benign, but it was also very shifty.
Yeah. Well, so I want to come on to that because I have to say, whoever was managing the communication strategy for the Labour Party...
Oh, you want them on your side.
They were very good. I doff my cap to you, sir or madam.
It was the opposite of Truss and Kwasi, where she couldn't communicate. I mean, you could have given her gold crowns and said, look, we'll give them to everybody, and she would still have made a mess of it.
Yes.
Whereas, these guys, they made us, the fear, talking to my parents' friends, they were really scared about what was coming. And actually, they've come out of it totally unscathed. National employers, NICs, don't bother them. No. Neither does the
minimum wage.
No.
So, okay, people saying they can't hear you clearly. That's unusual. You have a booming voice.
I do have a booming voice.
Is that better? Right. So, genuinely, when you talk about, look at the stories that they leaked in advance. There might be a 7p increase on fuel duty, which I ranted about. And capital gains tax might go to 39, because that sounds like they've really calculated it. 39%.
Yeah.
Everyone, what? Oh, 24%. Oh, only a 4% increase. Oh, that's fine. I'm happy about that.
Exactly.
It has to say it's been a masterclass in expectation management, I think. But actually, once you strip away all of the communications and you look at the cold, hard facts of this budget, the problem is there are two problems with it. Number one, they don't understand business. No. They don't understand business because they don't understand how badly what they've done is going to. I don't think they understand it. I think businesses can just find it's only 1% extra. It's going to be fine. It's only 6%.
I would love to think that it's because they don't understand it. That would be, an explanation. But successive governments, ever since self-employment and small limited companies, sole proprietors took off back in the late 90s, and we went from about 1 million people to about 5.2 million people, there has been a war that appears to have been fought. Now, whether that's through ignorance or whether it's deliberate, whether it's IR35, and those people are really going to get hurt because those contractors with IR35, they have to pay. They cannot take dividends. They're taking all of their salary as PAYE. So
they're paying their own employers' contributions.
Correct. They have to hit both. Or they will claim the umbrella company is doing it. And you heard at the beginning of the speech, she's going after umbrella companies.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know exactly how many people there are involved in umbrella companies. The estimate, I think, was 360,000 the last time I heard. but that's a significant number of people.
Yeah.
You know,
Nobody's better off, are they? That's the point that I took away from this budget.
nobody is better.
I mean, okay, if you're a minimum wage and you don't lose your job, then you're better off.
Well, if you're a pensioner who drives a lot,
Okay.
then you're better off.
Yes. Okay. Because of the pension increase linked to the 4%
and the fuel duty
not going up.
not going
Well, it's
up.
not making you better off, you're just not worse off.
No, well, and actually, you make a very good point, because it's the same thing as her selling the. Oh well, look, I'm only going to keep the freeze on the tax
I know.
threshold until 28. How good am I?
Yes.
I'm not going to.
The Tories did that.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
not going
blame
to
me.
announce 4 years in advance that I might put it up.
Yeah.
No, sorry, or keep it down, or reduce it, or freeze it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to say that we'll keep it frozen. So status quo. But it was £12,500 in 2019, I think, and then it was 12,750. It's remained 12,750. It's something like that.
That's the tax-free allowance. Yeah.
That's tax-free allowance before you start paying income tax.
Yeah.
But that 2019 figure, if you inflation adjust it, should now be over 15.5 grand.
That's where the threshold should be.
That's where just
keep it in line with inflation.
So people felt the same as they do, but actually that's another 3 grand between the 12,750 and the 15,600, whatever it is, that they can now tax.
Does the GDP per capita figure factor in that fiscal drag on income tax?
Oh God,
I don't think it does.
that's a very good question. I don't know. Don't know.
I don't think it would. My first thing is no, that wouldn't. They wouldn't adjust for that. The GDP is your gross earnings.
It is, yeah.
So in other words, the GDP per capita figure that's been depressing for some time, the fiscal drag, if they were to factor that in, means people's actual take-home and spending power is much worse than that. Which is why it feels like everyone's feeling so skint.
Yeah.
They're not feeling like my real income is just flatlined. They're like, no, I've got less money at the end of the month. There's too much month and not enough money. Now that brings me on. Let me get the serious part out of the way. This is important and I want to share it. And I may well regret doing this because this is definitely not in my lane as far as moving home advice is concerned. But back in 2008, when the housing market tanked, the business I had was doing photography and floor plans and virtual tours and software for estate agents and properties. And we had staff, 120 staff. And the long and the short of it was we went from 120 staff down to 30 staff. Right? We had a 75%
That's brutal.
headcount.
Yeah.
And as anyone, if you've ever done this, you'll know, right? Taking someone's job away is, without exception, in a league of its own, the most hateful fucking thing you ever have to do as an employer. Excuse my language, sorry. It is the most awful thing that you ever have to do as an employer. And at some point, if you're in business long enough, you will have to do it for reasons, in other words, where it's absolutely no fault of the employees whatsoever. There simply isn't the money to pay them anymore.
It's a Section 21.
And the lessons that I wish I'd had before I did this, that I've learned now, are that, first of all, don't think you know how they're going to react.
Yeah, true.
No matter how well you've worked, how long you've worked with them, how well you think you know them, I guarantee you the reactions will be, sometimes they might be what you expect, but as often as not, the reaction is completely the opposite of what you expect. I remember having to sit down and have a conversation with people where I thought they're going to take this really well, they're, everything else, and they literally lost their shit completely. And I remember expecting people who were going to do that to be very sanguine about it and go, shit happens.
It's one of the reasons that I became a contractor, was because as a permanent employee at the age of 25, I was ordered by my company to sack. I mean, totally illegally. I knew nothing. I was 25. What did I know?
They threw you under the bus.
And they threw me under the bus, and I had to give a number of people the notice that they were going to go. One of whom was, I'm 25, a 45-year-old senior IT engineer with 2 kids, and I'm in a little office in an M&S suit, in the middle of Chase Manhattan Bank. And this guy just burst into tears.
Yeah.
I never wanted that responsibility again, which as a contractor, you don't have to do.
No, it is awful. The other thing is, do not ever. Thankfully, I didn't make this mistake. I never, ever, 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 when you're letting someone go, say this is as hard for me as it is for you.
It's not.
Ever say that. And if you do, you can expect and you deserve a punch in the face.
Yes.
If you ever tell someone that you're firing that it's as bad for you as it is for them.
Rochambeau that person immediately.
Because honestly, it isn't as bad for you as it is for them. There's that scene in Jerry Maguire where he does that.
Yeah.
When Tom Cruise gets shot, he goes, "Hey, this isn't easy for me." The last thing on this, and then we'll move on to the budget, is don't delay it. Don't postpone it because you weaken the company for everyone else. The most important thing for the maximum number of people's jobs is that the company remains viable and stable. You have to put the company first, which the people who you let go are going to think that you're a selfish bastard. There's nothing you can do about that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look after the company, you take care of people's jobs. If you made the mistake I did earlier on, which is, I'll find a way to not let anyone go. I just don't want to let anyone go. I can't bear it.
The whole thing just
The whole thing collapses.
Yeah.
And no one gets paid.
Well, even in massive companies, I've worked, sadly, ever since 2008, a lot of the projects and programs in IT that I've worked on have been around people being outsourced, cost cutting, efficiencies, etc. And when you see an entire department put on consultation, and they don't know if they're going to lose their job, but they may lose their job, and they've been warned that that could happen, and it could happen, in X months or maybe.
That's horrible. The uncertainty.
The atmosphere and the lack of productivity, and you go, well, are you surprised?
Yes, I know.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's horrible, and it's very stressful for the people. It is much better.
It's awful.
As nasty as it sounds, it is much better to be upfront and be brutal about it.
Yeah.
Than it is to leave them hanging around, because that's just mental strife.
Stop me if I've told this story already, but I remember Foxtons in the 90s when the market took a turn for the worse.
Right.
They had their Friday meeting in Park Lane every Friday, and if you weren't there, you were automatically fired.
Right.
Unless you had a company sanctioned holiday, you were automatically fired if you weren't there for the Friday meeting. If you had to be in hospital or on holiday, but that was it. They had to reduce their headcount by 50%.
Wow.
Zero notice. Boss walks in, and everyone has to stand in one big group. He walked into the middle of the group, put his hand in the middle, and went, "All of you guys, sorry, you're out."
Nothing to do with how good you were, or just half the machine cogs. Well, that's Foxtons for you.
Yeah. Brutal but efficient.
Yeah. Well, there's
illegal.
Yes, totally illegal now. Probably illegal.
But back then, they had an in-house lawyer. His name was Carl. I actually remember I had to deal with him a couple of times myself. And Carl would just deal with the fallout, the legal fallout. It was cheaper that way. Anyway, guys, sorry for that part. Now, please do ask your questions. Put your questions to us if you want to. I know Alex is watching them as well. Oh yes, Gavin Ward. I think that's in reply to the GDP question about does it include fiscal drag, and he says, well, it includes sex and drugs, so probably. Some interesting questions here. They're quite specific. Got my end of year pay rise confirmed today, 8% raise. Well done, Craig. Good for you. So yeah, overall, if the Labour Party is pinning its future success on growth, nothing I saw today has a surefire success chance of stimulating growth.
No, I agree. But it appeared to me, because it was mentioned by Mrs. Reeves a number of times, specifically when she was talking about government departments and how she was expecting them to manage a 2% cost cutting over the next however long it was, as well as the NHS. She makes a lot of efficiency. So HMRC was another one where they're going to use the latest technology. What she means by that is machine learning algorithms, which are going to go, oh, that person's a crook, and get it wrong as many times as they get it right, which will be exciting.
That's one word for it.
But this is the problem. They're pinning their hopes on, we're going to deliver growth. We have no idea how, but we're going to save all that money because we're going to deliver efficiencies. And we're going to do it with Chat GPT-4.
They're not going to.
And I know, because I've worked in the healthcare industry and even in private hospitals, which, by the way, you have to be connected with NHS hospitals. There is a special network for that. And you use electronic patient records, all this sort of good stuff. And you cannot get records between various trusts. It is an absolute joke.
What a joke.
And they've been
It's
trying
such a
to do that. I first got seconded onto one of those projects in 2003, 21 years ago, when they were rolling out Microsoft Exchange. And it is very, very complex, and made more complex deliberately by individual hospital administrators to actually link up these systems. And I am sure the same is true. Well, just as we talked about the land registry, and one of the people made the point, well, a lot of the records are still on microfiche. So you're going to have to digitize those first before you do any automation.
Land Registry's announced today it's doubling or tripling its fees. Doubling or tripling its fees.
It needs to employ 27 times as many people in order to...
I mean, what you've got to understand is when you have a system performing a service or a function, and that system is 20 or 30 or 40 years old, you can't...
It's like, not easy.
You can't take, it would be the equivalent of taking a 40-year-old car, like my dirty old bastard Merc, right? And trying to make that more efficient.
Well,
okay, you're going to make minor, you might go in and tune the engine a bit, you might put some better brakes on, a better suspension, but it's going to be small increments of improvement, not major improvements, unless you strip out the chassis and the engine and you replace it with an electric where it will never run properly anyway.
And that's the point, is when you do that, you don't use the car for 6 months whilst you do that work. And it's the same thing when friends go to places like Shanghai and they go, oh my God, the underground, so it's incredible and everything works so well. So yes, it does. Well, why don't they do that in London? It's supposed to be a first world city. Underground is over 160 years old. Fixing it when you've got X million people using it every day is really bloody difficult. And I'm afraid that's my theory around the whole of the Western world, effectively, is that unless we build another London, move everyone to it, knock this one down and replace the infrastructure, we are decaying in these wonderful old buildings where we live.
Yes. That's true both at a sort of individual level and a sort of collective level, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I feel quite decayed today, I've got to be honest.
It's amazing. Every 5 years, there are 5 years of new people voting who've never heard of this stuff before because they didn't care before when they were younger. And this sounds great. Sounds brilliant. But more tax. I don't mind paying more tax if it's going to fix everything. Honestly, everyone, every single new government that comes in says the same. We're going to, HMRC collections, we're going to fix that. HMRC is going to be much, 500 billion over, I can't remember how long it is. Is it since 1998 or something? I think I sort of figured HMRC has failed to collect 500 billion that was due since 1998.
That is quite a lot of money. Of course, Doug Barrowman owes quite a large percentage of that.
Okay. So, all right. So who, in terms of working people, and my definition of people is people having to get up and go and do stuff they don't really want to do for money.
Yes, I think that's work. I mean, I regard myself as someone who works. I have clients that if they're not happy, they don't pay me. So therefore, I'm a working person.
And your work is not fun.
No, today it was very much not fun. Never do public sector procurement.
Okay.
Notification.
It's you. You're the public sector procurement. It's Alex's fault.
Yeah, bloody is my fault this time.
But the process sounds ridiculous.
It's bastard.
Absolutely ridiculous. So the OBR saying, GDP is going to be pretty pathetic sometime.
Well, pretty pathetic. What were they talking about? 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is, and the problem is, so You may remember way back when, 2.5 years ago, I did those graphs as we were chatting about this sort of stuff. And we had 50 years of GDP per capita increasing by about 2.7% per year.
Yeah.
That was where we went. Now that's understandable. We'd had a huge war. The only way it could go was up. Then you had the boomers and lots of people joining the workforce at a time where salaries and wages were pretty low and not protected. And then the technology revolution that started in the 70s and all of this. But that lasted a very long time. It lasted until about 2000 when the dot-com bust was.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it per capita, and the only way I believe to look at GDP is per capita, because if you've got £100 and it's just you on a night out, well, that's not so bad. But if you've got £100 and there's 10 of you on a night out, you are not having a good time. Yeah. I mean, there's not all the beers, not in London anyway.
No.
But it fell from 2000 all the way through until, 2019. So before COVID, it fell from 2.7% to 1% growth. 1%
GDP per capita.
Per capita.
Is this real?
Yes,
yeah.
It's deflated.
Yeah,
It's GDP deflator. And if you then included the COVID bust, through until 2023, it's down to 0.7%. Okay? These numbers, which is when they say...
Oh, sorry, hang on a second. Okay, down to 0.7%.
Yeah.
Real GDP per capita.
Yeah.
Not including fiscal drag.
No, not including...
okay.
We need to check. But what I'm saying is, at that point, if you included the COVID piece, it really was horrendous. That's okay, because COVID was short term. We're going to bounce back out of that. But we haven't. Our real GDP per capita is still below where it was pre-COVID. We've had zero growth. We've actually had decline because we've had a lot of immigration and we've had very little increase in productivity. And therefore, we are in decline. The numbers they quote are not per capita. So, okay, we've just had the lowest fertility rate on record since 1938. So, okay, we're not going to be adding too many people to the country that way. Maybe we can, fudge GDP by just having a smaller population because we have no kids. But that ain't going to work if we keep bringing in more immigrants, because then the population will continue to increase. So when you hear about 1% and how that's so much better, not only is it so much worse than it was 25 years ago, which is why you feel poorer, but incidentally, but per capita, it's bloody terrible.
Yeah.
And yet they only give you that, it's going to be, inflation's going to be down to 2.12% by 2029 and 1.2% growth at this point. Yeah. Oh, wow.
So what your point is that even if they hit the numbers they're saying, it's on a per capita basis, it's nothing.
Yeah, correct. Well, unless suddenly.
Yeah. Okay. See, I'll tell you what this Labour government reminds me of. Have you ever sat in a corporation's a meeting where there's a brainstorm about how we can drive sales, and they ask for ideas, and people bring their ideas, and you listen to the ideas and you just go, these aren't ideas. This is flimsy guesswork at best. It hasn't been researched, and this company's dying. It's dead. This parrot is dead. And yet, at the end of the meeting goes, well, that was great. We've got targets, and definitely we're going to invest in this, and so we're going to get growth. And you sit there just going, nope, you're dead.
Can I give you an example of two of my nicknames?
Yeah, okay.
When I was at Chase Manhattan, they used to call me into those meetings, not for sales, but for the overall program and projects that we were working on. And they go, right, Alex, we want you to have a look at this. Just look that over. And I go, well, they're going to work. So I became known as the Grim Reaper. So at Chase, I was the Grim Reaper. At Sony, I was known as Dr. Death.
What?
Yeah. Because if you asked me to look over your project, you were pretty much screwed.
But you see, this is if you have, I remember when I was younger running businesses, that false optimism that I had was expensive, costly, mistaken.
Yeah, but occasionally you got a great reward out of it.
Well, I just called it being positive. Well, you've got to be positive, haven't you?
And you have.
But not if that's being unrealistic.
Well, which is where this whole idea that the Labour Party have that they are going to use IT and automation to resolve inefficiencies That is Tinkerbell and fairy dust.
Yes.
And as you said, yeah, there were bits of the budget that sort of suggested they might think about growth. I mean, we're going to be talking about, there wasn't clean tech. What were they talking about? Aerospace. We're going to be investing in aerospace and this sort of stuff. It was there, but it was peanuts in the greater scheme of things. You know,
they were all, and then the housing stuff they mentioned was peanuts as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely pitiful.
Yeah.
Someone said, Dan Denning says, that death in poverty video is looking more and more realistic. Guys, I can tell you, for those of you who are relatively recent joiners here to this channel and maybe haven't watched the death in poverty video, go and watch it. Because death in poverty is a concept that Alex came up with back in 2021, was it?
Yeah.
You put that Facebook post up.
Yes.
And described it. And then we read it out in that video and we discussed it. And basically, it's panning out exactly as you said it would.
Yeah,
Dr. fucking Death.
I'm not happy about that.
No, I know. No, but sorry, the point I want to make is, I've known Alex a long time, he doesn't come up with these ideas because he thinks, yeah, that's fun. That's a good idea.
No.
Alex is trying to warn us so we can prepare for this, but no one listens, do they?
Well, and Jesus, I hope I'm wrong. I believe that to lead a life that is happy, you do need to be an optimist. I mean, there's no benefit to being a pessimist, and I don't regard myself as one. I'm a pragmatic realist. But certainly, if you're not going to be a realist, be an optimist. Because why would you want to be anything else?
So let me put this to you then. I think that the answer to the question, is the glass half empty or half full? The only correct answer is both.
Yeah, yes. Which is why it's a stupid. I've never understood that question.
Exactly. So, are you a glass half full
Schrodinger's
person?
cat is either dead or alive. I am not falling for this. He's both dead and alive. That's rubbish. It's rubbish.
But honestly, seriously, if you strip away what you've been taught as a kid and what you've heard and what your friends say, is the glass half full or half empty? Sorry, the question is
my question is normally, I think I need a top up. But you're 100% right. It is both.
It is
half
both.
full and half empty.
That's where I always. So whenever I have these discussions about the housing market or anything else, that's where I am. People go, "Oh, but you're being so pessimistic, Charlie," says the glass half full crowd.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be Armageddon and anarchy, Charlie. No, that's the glass half empty. No, it's going to be both.
But there's realism, which is it probably isn't quite as bad as you expect. But it's really not going to be as good as you hope.
But it's good to basically prepare yourself for the worst, which is what the whole point of these videos is. It's for those of you who are contemplating life moves and house moves. And actually, if any questions tonight from anyone watching right now who have got questions about your move as a result of the budget, those are the questions I'd love to see. Jacek says, how bad does it need to get before it gets better? Well, I mean, not much, but much worse than anyone's going to be comfortable with, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't see that there's no way of curtailing that unless there's a massive discovery of something amazing, unless the government pulls out like wacky, amazing, bold ideas in useful technology that's actually going to massively build our countries.
Which they will, but that's where I keep going back to. You may start to see improvements in 30 years' time. But it really won't be until another 70 years have passed that we start to see real benefit from the robotics and automation, and all of our goods are produced without the requirement for human manual labor.
Yeah, I know, but the fact that we are having to import talent because our homegrown workforce can't do the skilled jobs we have is a fundamental failure of government, I think. The education system. Right? They haven't looked forward and gone, we've got people out of work and we've got jobs we can't fill. I mean, that's the definition of a wasted opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. So
but these people cannot do these jobs. Well, there's two groups, aren't there? There are the jobs that nobody in England wants to do, which is why you have to bring fruit pickers from Romania, etc., to come and work the farms during the season. And there are the jobs like consultant neurosurgeon that there just aren't enough people in the UK trained to do.
Yeah.
And, they are very different skill sets and very different impact on GDP. I mean, I don't know this, but I suspect that an awful lot of our supposedly highly skilled workforce end up working in finance,
Yes.
given that
In Dubai
yeah, well, that's
or
also true.
Singapore for 10 years and then they come back. I've got friends who did that.
Yeah.
They went to Singapore, made a mint, didn't pay any tax, came
Yeah.
back loaded.
Yeah.
Rich Cook, is that better? I have repositioned the microphone in a place that I believe should be better. So let me know if that's better. Thank you for. So we've got a few points here. So Alexandra says that it's made her feel that the budget's made her feel very down, but hasn't explained why. We have a question from a mover here. In the process, Andrea says, in the process of buying a flat in London, now worried I've offered too much, as changes in the budget are likely to result in lower prices. Should I be worried? Right. Without knowing the true extent of your financial situation, I can't tell you whether you should be worried or not. But what I can tell you is that anyone who's buying and suddenly gets a bad feeling about the price they're paying, listen to that.
Yeah, always listen to your gut.
Listen to if it suddenly feels uncomfortable to proceed at that price, don't ignore that feeling. Never ignore that feeling. It's a much bigger mistake to buy and wish you hadn't than to not buy and wish you had. In my opinion, it's a bigger mistake because
there's always another house.
There are always other houses, and people say, "Oh, but you might miss the market and it goes to the moon." But that's not happening right now in this market. There's no okay. So, I would, if you have a strong feeling of discomfort about your purchase, and this budget may well do that to a lot of people given the stamp duty changes, then ask yourself this question: what price would I be comfortable to proceed at? In other words, revise your maximum comfortable offer. I can hear all the sellers going, "Charlie, shut up! Stop it! Stop it! No, stop it!" But even to the sellers, I would say, wouldn't it be better to still get your sale done at a slightly revised price than to lose it altogether?
Yeah.
Right? If I was a seller now and the buyer came along and said to me, "Look, I'm really worried because this is going to make a £6,000 difference overall. Can we split the difference?"
Yep.
And reduce it by £3,000. That's an utterly reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
That's basically saying, I still want to buy a house, but the world has changed. Can we please equally split this difference? And if the seller says no, I would back out as a buyer.
Yeah.
Because that's not reasonable, I don't think. But some sellers will go, no, because we have to have this price, otherwise we can't buy the next place. Yeah. But then as a seller, you've then got to go and renegotiate your onward purchase. Exactly. That's the point. And this is why it's going to be a nightmare for agents, because this is going to be happening already.
Yeah. It leaves a bad taste. I mean, in December of 2007, I was selling my flat.
Yeah.
Which was a very good time to sell.
It was.
And I had the offer and they came and everything was great, but it took through until about March, April of 2008. And on the day that we were supposed to complete, they went, oh, could you take some more off? And I just said, I looked at what was happening.
You mean exchange? They were supposed to exchange.
Exchange, yes, sorry. Yeah. And I just went, what am I going to do? Yeah. I mean, really, if I start again now, am I going to get a better price? No. So it did irritate me because they had committed to a price for the previous 3
Was it
months.
something like a budget that caused it, or was it just they just changed their mind?
Oh, well, the news stories at that point were beginning to get fairly, house prices didn't fall much until, well, about April, May of 2008, I think. But yeah, wow. And so you accept it, and I did, and moved on.
I've had a whole load of messages from agents today. I asked them, have they seen any immediate fallout from the budget? Yes, one sale down, another high-end property, which is on the verge of repossession, now unlikely to sell as we have no room to reduce further. Absolutely nothing for first-time buyers, and the CGT allowance dwindled down to almost nothing. What incentive is there now for individuals to buy and renovate any of the 670,000 empty homes? Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point.
Yep.
This is a bad day for the UK housing market, says that agent. I agree with that. Disappointing news for small businesses and nothing to help move the market on. More the opposite, says another agent. One agent says, nothing's changed in my eyes. I don't have many investors in my pipeline. I've told my staff to continue to be positive about the budget with buyers and get the properties we have between this price and that price sold now, as it will save buyers thousands, and particularly with how long, because of the stamp duty increase. So Yeah, someone else said buyers have had more confidence recently, and this will reverse this uptick quite extremely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
The stamp duty changes will be an excuse, but not a big factor. Cost of living just went into another bracket, but it will all hinge on interest rates. So that's the other thing. I don't think, with the OBR forecasting inflation to rise next year, 2.5% instead of 2.4 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think the scope for an interest rate cut is just reduced.
Yes. Well, I mean, you and I both agreed that we weren't going back to zero anytime soon.
Yeah. So right at the beginning of the year, I remember I said my guess was we'll get 1 quarter point cut this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're right about inflation.
No, well, the OBR is never right about anything.
I think it will be substantially lower than that, faster than that.
Patricia says, Alex, chase, train the best, and keep the rest. I was one of them too.
I was a third party at Chase. I was in there sorting out their IT for a company called SCC. So they didn't train me, but it was fun working there for a bit. 1997.
Yeah. Wow. You are old.
I know. Jesus, it's another century. Another century.
I was very, very happy they didn't put fuel duty up. Because that fuel duty directly it's like a sliding scale of how hard it hurts you.
Bothers me not at all.
No, I know, but to everyone who has to drive to get to work and back.
Yeah. If you're the man in the van, people, the lady in the van, it's a big issue.
Tradesperson in the van.
Yeah.
That was I was very relieved. I like to think that my enraged post, which got like nearly 100,000 views, might just have got back to someone going, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that.
I kind of doubt it. No, what we could do is take a note out of Amazon's book.
What have they done?
Well, build a small modular nuclear reactor, change their entire trucking shipping fleet to electric, and just charge it off their own nuclear reactor. Rock and roll.
Have they really?
That's what that's hyperbole, but yes, that's the sort of thing they're planning on doing.
Just looking at some of the comments coming in. Wow. Raquel Fletcher. I have a job offer from the USA and I'd like to accept. I have a 2-bed house in Bristol, which everyone is saying I should rent out to stay index linked in the UK. Sell and bank 100 grand or rent it out.
Oh.
Okay, interesting question. The only basis if you're going to move abroad that you can rent that out is through a fully managed letting agent.
Who will take how much?
Between 6 and 12%, depending on the quality of how much service you want, right? Depending on who you go to. High-end management agents will charge 12%, 10 to 12%, and that is a lot, but you can expect gold-plated service.
It's less than I expected. I thought it would be about 20%.
No, but they take the money, they take that share of the rent every month, whether there's anything to do or not.
Yeah,
it's like a retainer.
Of course,
okay, you still have to pay for maintenance on top of that, but they will organise it for you.
Yeah,
they'll get the quotes and arrange it. Smaller lettings agents will charge you 5 or 6%. Don't go too cheap if you're going to do that. Make sure you get a quality one. An owner-managed lettings business is what you want, where the owner cares, because being a landlord. In fact, I've got a horror story to share with you guys from someone who did exactly this. Lost his job, so he moved out of his flat and moved in with his girlfriend and rented the flat out.
Yeah. And
has now got a 65-year-old woman in there, not paying rent and not leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And he's unemployed, and he's having an absolute nightmare, like a life-changing bad nightmare. So, Raquel, I don't know what your risk tolerance is, but being a landlord is not as easy as give it to an agent, they'll rent it out and just collect the money. You'll have void periods, you'll have maintenance issues, you'll have antisocial neighbours. The chances of ending up in court are quite high. If you want to be a professional landlord and manage a few, and you're prepared for that, that's one thing. But
a single property, is it a flat?
Yes, it's a 2-bedroom house in Bristol. I would take your money and put it somewhere else. I'd put it in Buckcoin or something. Gold or Buckcoin.
I'm quite pleased with my gold investments recently.
Yeah. I did a whole video, actually, Raquel. I'm sorry. I'm assuming it's Raquel because of how it's spelled. Maybe it's Rachel. Sorry. I did a whole video very recently about why you should avoid being an accidental landlord. Maybe you can watch that video. It's only a couple of weeks ago. Do we have any other Bobby's World says, what if I find a place before April the 1st? Does it mean I'll still have to pay stamp duty for the exchanges afterwards? Yes. Stamp duty is on completion date. So you need to complete, I believe, not just exchange, you need to complete the transaction. The date it is registered with the land registry or with HMRC.
It's irrelevant.
No, the date it is registered with HMRC is the date that determines whether it's due tax or not. So,
No.
and it is registered, completions have to be registered with HMRC.
Sorry, yes, with HMRC, not
Yeah.
the land registry. The land registry date, irrelevant. HMRC, very relevant. And yeah, it's completion.
Wow, Noddy Edwards says, hi Noddy, that's a new name, welcome. Best advice I have heard given. Better to regret losing the house than regret buying the house. There is always another house. Absolutely, exactly. Don't get that, like, you know, it's like deal fever, like buying fever. You've been trying to buy for so long and now you can finally do it. And you kind of know you're overpaying, but I just want the house.
Well, you see people at auctions.
What's the
is
word?
The worst thing where you can actually see it.
What's the phrase? Something at speed and repent at leisure. Something in haste.
Yes.
Buy in haste, repent at leisure.
No, marry. It's actually marry. It's marry in haste, repent at leisure. Except I don't remember there being much leisure. It was just a lot of repentance.
I remember that. It's so inappropriate, but I remember someone saying, why get married? Just find someone you hate and give them a house.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
See what I mean? We laugh about these things. Any other good questions? Run to the sun as fast as you can, says Hoxton Hotspur. That's a good one.
Yeah, he's right.
Especially right now. The tax burden here is a joke.
It's nuts.
It was already, before today, it was already bad.
Well, I've got friends who, because they were IT type people, they went out to places like Abu Dhabi and Dubai back in the day. And by back in the day, I'm talking about 2005,
early 2000s,
that sort of thing. And
Bentley Continental GT time.
yes, and they helped, Emirates, for instance, as an airline and all that sort of stuff. And then they decided, no, we're coming back, family, that sort of thing, we'll come back. And they came back in about 2013, once the worst of the GFC had all fallen down. And they bought properties, which was a perfect time to buy. Do you know what? They're now in their 50s, some of them even older, and they're going, I'm thinking maybe of just heading back out to the Middle East for a bit. And you're like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, that's a young man's game, isn't it? But
why?
Well, and that's the situation they find themselves in, is that 10 years later, or 12 years later, by the time they go.
Okay, so we have 3 times as many people with us now as when I last said this. So for those of you who know, so this is the weekly Movers workshop. I've got Alex here as this week's guest, discussing moving, the effect of the budget on moving. At 10 o'clock tonight, it's the Charlie and Stig Show, the first one that isn't open to the public. And those of you who signed up, we're looking forward to having it with you. And it's going to be a live video conference. You can be on camera if you want, on screen, or just audio. That's actually fine.
No.
Not you, but my point is the guests are welcome, so that they can be in the room. And if you join before about 9:45 this evening, you can still make it. And the link to that is in the live chat now if you want to join. And that's going to be a whiskey fueled. And if someone actually guessed this right and asked, is it going to be Penderyn? That apparently is Penderyn, sorry. I'm a heathen.
You are a heathen. I
That's
can't believe you've never had Welsh whiskey.
That's the first official expenditure from the Charlie and Stig.
In which case, I'll send you an
coffers.
invoice for a reimbursement.
Yes, absolutely. It's the whole point.
You don't know how much it was, yeah?
Oh yes, I don't have enough members to pay for it.
It's all right. It's only 45.
Right, I want to know. Let's ask the audience. How much is a bottle of Penderyn worth?
Penderyn.
Sorry. Any more questions here about moving that I've missed? Please feel free to copy and paste your question if it's about moving in the budget to the bottom. If you want to see Stig in the flesh, you'll have to come to one of our dinner meetups.
Yeah, that seems fair.
You're not going to get to see him otherwise. He's just too handsome for you guys. Thoughtful Thought said, I'm going through a transaction now. I was hoping that the budget would give more inclination on what might happen with interest rates, but I don't think it did. Well, I think it did. I think they're less likely to come down now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're going to stay where they are for some time.
They may firkle around, but I don't see them.
Firkle, that's a great word.
I don't see them getting below 3.5, let's say, and I think they're more likely to stay at 4 and above.
Goldman Sachs is saying 2.75 by the end of next year, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not sure that's exactly what they said.
9 cuts, they said. 9 quarter-point
cuts. Have you read
cuts.
the report?
I read someone citing it.
Yeah, okay.
Sort of more than one place, but you know, who yeah. Do we have any other? Are you keeping a? Oh, 35 quid, 40 quid. Yeah, Alex already trying to make money on this deal. He said 45. Lying schmuck.
No, well, that's Waitrose, mate. Waitrose.
Andrea, well, that's your own fault if you go and buy the Waitrose. I'm not paying the Waitrose premium. Andrea says, with capital gains tax staying at 24% on properties.
Yeah.
Staying at 20? Was it already 24% just on properties?
Yeah.
And more difficult rules for landlords. Do you think lots of properties will flood the market? I don't think there's going to be a sudden increase triggered as a result of the budget. I don't think that. I do think that the biggest factor that's going to affect the number of properties coming into the market from landlords selling up now is what's going to happen with the renters' rights bill, because that's still going through the motions.
Yeah.
And exactly how that is finally implemented will have an impact.
Well, just like the employment rights. I mean, let's not forget we talked about people and job losses, unintended consequences, putting the sort of onus on employers that is going to happen with this bill may make people a lot less inclined to employ so easily. But sorry, same thing with the renters' rights. You know, that I can't see landlords other than big land. That can still be an individual, but an individual with many properties rather than a big corporation like Lloyd's Bank or whoever it may be. I just can't see very many accidental, I've got 1 2-bed flat left outside a limited company because it's just not worth it.
Well, I had one agent saying down in the southwest that Devon and Cornwall are going to really get hit by this.
Yeah.
By the increase in stamp duty on second homes, because there are already a lot of second homes in the market down there that aren't selling. You can see them. They're Airbnbs. They're lovely, really nice 5-6 bedroom houses with pools. That clearly not homes, clearly not rentals.
Yeah. Fully
furnished, beautiful. It's just the Airbnb market.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, am I upset about the people in Devon and Cornwall being able to afford property again and the Airbnb market being?
No, it's good news.
Exactly.
It's good news. It's definitely good news. Anything that leads to improving affordability is overall, yes, there are some losers.
But the only way you do that is to stop banks lending 6 times salary multiples over 40 years. Unless you actually regulate bank lending, unless you force them to go back to the more reasonable multiples that we had in the 1990s and the durations of mortgages that we had in the 90s, house prices will not come down. That's why house prices and wages are so closely correlated. If wages come down, house prices come down. But they will try every trick in the book. So when I first bought a flat, you could, if there were 2 of you, I think you could get 2.5 times your combined salary, or 3 times one person's salary and whatever it was. And the standard mortgage term was 25 years. I mean, you didn't even discuss longer than that. It was just, that's the standard term. Well, if then they had said, well, actually, you can borrow 6 times. I mean, I couldn't have afforded it because interest rates were slightly higher, but you could borrow 6 times. Well, of course, when they told me we want an extra 20,000 for this place, I'd have gone.
Yeah, but it's not the income multiple. It's whether the repayment is within the percentage of your,
which only works on the interest rates or the duration. So this is why you say, look, it's easy. If you can afford £1,000 a month, if the interest rate that you get it at is 2%, then sure, you could have a 5 times multiple because that's fantastic over 25 years. But if the interest rate is 4.5%, you can't afford.
No.
So what do? They go, don't worry, pay it over 40 years.
Yeah. Well, okay. I've heard something really good recently. Two things actually. I've had a great question came to my mind and now it's gone. Oh no, that's right. Someone on X was saying about how they actually admitted it, and then someone else said, "Yeah, me too." They said, "We bought a house to be our pension.
Yeah.
We weren't able to sell it. We've now finally sold it for a lot less. We've downsized. We got less for it than we expected. What we've moved to has cost more than we expected.
Yeah.
We now don't have a pension."
Yeah. Well, that is.
And they said our plan backfired.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what I was saying a couple of years ago was going to happen, and you said it's going to happen as well.
Part of
and so
poverty.
it's so important. Part of death and poverty, right? So it's so important people understand that, because there are still people out there selling houses as pensions, going, "Oh, you can't go wrong. It's bricks and mortar, double every 10 years," and it doesn't, does it now? And in fact, Otter Property this week showed that nationally, detached houses are now down 10%.
Yeah,
year on year,
nominally
down 10%.
You know, in real terms, it's much more than that.
That's the average detached property house, and that's not being reported in the media.
No,
and that's land registry data.
And we're going to see more and more of that, especially with detached properties, because as the boomers die, the ones who have been fortunate enough that there's either now one or two of them in a 4 to 6 plus bedroom house, no one can afford in their 30s to buy that house, or say no one. Very few people can afford to buy that house at the price that they think it is worth. But more importantly, they can't afford to maintain and run that house that has a low EPC rating. My father's gas and electricity bills are vast.
Yeah, dude, listen, I know I was in a big drafty country house until not that long ago.
I never believed that you could actually pay that much for gas and electricity.
But so 30 years ago, you could buy a house when you were 25 years old with a 25-year mortgage, which meant that at 50, you owned your house, you had no mortgage.
Exactly.
And you still had 15 years till retirement. So you had 50 more years of saving.
And that would be why all of my father's friends retired between the ages of 53 and 57.
Right. So just to all of the youngsters here thinking, why is it so hard? We were told the future was going to be great. And because it was 25 and 25 then, right? 25 years old, 25-year mortgage paid off at 50. Now it's, to be optimistic about it, it's 35 and 35.
Yeah.
You're buying a house at 35 instead of 25, and you've got a 35-year mortgage, which means that you're not finishing your mortgage until you're 70, which is past retirement age.
I can hear the mortgage brokers and the estate agents now screaming at you, Charlie. Nobody keeps their mortgage for 35 years. You'll overpay it. Of course you'll overpay it, and therefore it won't take you 35 years to pay it off. I've got to tell you guys, best will in the world, unless you are the most fiscally disciplined person on the planet, and unless your life goes absolutely as you expect it to, not an accidental baby a bit late in life when you were 40 and you'd already thought you'd had the 2 through, not the, oh dear, did I get cancer? Oh, I actually need private treatment for that shit. Oh God.
Yes, life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way, and suddenly you haven't overpaid your mortgage by as much as you thought you might. And you're 70 and you're still making mortgage payments. So I understand why the mortgage advisors like to shout and scream about how you'll change your mortgage, you'll overpay it, there'll come a time in your life.
I love it. These are the young mortgage brokers saying that as well.
There'll come a time when you're rich. Yes, I've been playing the lottery ever since it started. I'm not rich. Never won the 140 million euro millions.
So, question from Glenn Watson here: do I remortgage now at 4% for 2 years, 4.3% for 5 years, or wait?
Oh God!
What's the 5-year horizon for you? So, Glenn, I'm glad every now and then we get this question. It's a good question. The answer to that question depends on your risk appetite, because what you're actually saying is, which do you think is going to save me the most money? Nobody knows what's going to happen with mortgage rates and base rates in the future. So what you need to ask yourself is, the upside of you taking a gamble on a shorter rate is saving 0.35% for 2 years. That's the upside. So you have a capped upside. The potential downside is that you take your 4% for 2 years, and then at the end of it, the World War III is kicked off, interest rates have gone through the roof, and you have to remortgage, and the rate is suddenly 7%. I'm just making stuff up here, okay? So the question is, it's like, what's more important to you, certainty or the chance of saving a few quid? Because that's the real question, right? What would you rather? Know where you are for 2 years and then not know where you're going to be after that, but you might save a bit of money, or know where you are for 5 years? Personally, I think when it comes to planning for family and life, certainty is a very highly valuable thing.
Yep.
And if you can afford 4.35% or whatever it is, slightly more for 10 years, and you know, well, that's it. And maybe I could have got cheaper, but I now know my mortgage won't go above that for 10 years. That's the way to look at it, right? And anyone who tells you otherwise is full of shit. If you want to go 2 years on a lower rate, you are gambling.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Simple as that. And don't ever ask a mortgage broker what rates are going to do, because they don't know any more than Andrew Bailey fucking knows what's going to happen to interest rates. Nobody knows what's going to happen to interest. And asking a mortgage broker what's going to happen to interest rates is like asking an estate agent what's going to happen to house prices. They will guess and they will tell you optimistic stuff, but they don't know. And you shouldn't ask them. Right? They don't know. If anyone actually knew what was going to happen, they'd make billions.
Maybe you should go and ask Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows. No, Charlie's absolutely right. Nobody knows. We make best guesses, and sometimes they're right, but often they're wrong.
Right. Any more last minute questions? Because I was going to wrap this up because me and actually have a break between now and our next appointment this evening. But no. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much. Yes, Duncan Ray says buying at 40 plus now is more the norm. Exactly. So with a 30, 35-year mortgage, you're now 75, 80.
Certainly in London. I mean, outside of London, it's still a bit younger, but it's. Well, but that's what's so mad is first-time buyer at 40.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had followers messaging me saying they're first-time buyers at 50.
Yeah.
So, guys, Last Chance Saloon. If you want to join me and Alex live in a Zoom, it's like a Zoom call. It's not exactly a Zoom call. And actually, we have had a 40% increase in our members of our group during this call.
Excellent.
During this live stream. So, thank you very much to those of you who've joined during this live stream. We will see you at 10 o'clock. You will get an email. Watch out for your email. I'll send the email around about 9:45-ish. You'll need to check your junk folder. Okay. And if you don't get it and you're expecting it, send me a private message on X or on Instagram.
As Rich said, check your junk.
Check your junk, guys. Always check your junk. But yeah, that is where, and I think there's a link in the description below, but buymeacoffee.com/MHWC. If you just go there, you'll find the link to the membership. And we'll see you at 10 o'clock when we will, he's already opened it.
I have opened it and sniffed it.
God,
I've been here sniffing.
He's sneakily got started.
No, I haven't got started. It's still full.
And what you can expect is a very different tone of conversation later on. That's the whole point of the Charlie and Stig show.
Hey, Santa Claus, you.
Yes. There will be bad language, very bad language. We will talk about more contentious things.
Yeah.
Although
somebody mentioned earlier, right at the beginning, there was a comment saying, shouldn't we just be pleased that the person delivering the statement has boobs? And it's difficult to comment on that, except she did make the point, and it grated with me just a little. Bearing in mind, we've had three female prime ministers, if you count Liz Truss, but that was, you can't really
technically
count her. And one of them was in the 70s. We're talking a long time ago.
Yes, yeah.
And Rachel, she stood up there and she said, I had the first female chancellor, and I wanted to leave a legacy.
Someone should have asked her what a female is.
Yeah, but I will leave a legacy for this country, for all of the young women to understand that they could do whatever they want. I'm like, I've been hearing that rhetoric for a long time. Is there ever a chance that we could all just have a better country?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Everyone. Even the chicks
so
with
we might talk about. I mean, Bitcoin always comes up, crypto comes up, doesn't it? CBDCs come up, prostitution as part of GDP.
Yes,
nefarious drugs.
That should always come up.
That should always. Death in poverty.
Yep.
How to avoid it, legally and illegally.
There's no avoidance.
How to bend the rules. The black market, the return of the black market.
Yeah,
and just how that works.
Until CBDC.
I mean, I can't speak from experience, obviously, but I, according to people I know well, there are ways that you can handle things, the black market, and you can avoid because tax avoidance is not illegal. Tax evasion is illegal. So no, Tamak, tonight's not going to be recorded. It's going to just be because it's a Zoom call. It's like a Zoom call. I might see if I can record it. Are you a member, Tamak? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I will record it because if you're a member and you can't make it, I'll make sure you can get to see it. Actually, provided the screen record. Yeah, I will record it. Just be a screen recording. But let's buy it. Was that Bald Coin?
What?
Buy Alex's Bald Coin. Someone said. I can't pause it gaming says that. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I hope that was useful, entertaining, interesting. Look forward to seeing those of you. And by the way, also, if you are already a member of the Charlie's private movers Q&A club, you've also got a special invitation to mine and Alex's call. So check your email, check your junk, boys and girls, check your junk for the email I've sent you guys too as a special one-off guest
Cool.
as a thank you for being in the movers club. So I can have up to a maximum of 200 people on that call, but it's going to be about a tenth of that.
That's all right.
And it's just going to be me and Alex chatting with each other, and you guys can chime in as you wish. You can talk to us on that. You can be on video, just on audio, or you can just type in the chat if you prefer. Right. I'm going to stop. I'm going to actually stop.
I thought you were going to keep talking forever.
I'm going to stop. But make sure you sign my newsletter if you haven't got it already. It's there. Bye.